Welcome back, everybody. It's the college championship, and Valorant action can only go so far. We're nearing the end here, Jackson, and unfortunately, with the positive boons of doing so, and these teams now cementing their play in for the prize pool and the scholarship that comes from it, we also are at the woes where these losing teams continue to battle on and hope for the best. They just sent Cumberland out on the previous best of 3. Now, as we step into this next one in the upper brackets, there is a chance for the loser of this series to move on to then fight once more, but the chances are so slim, you really just want to guarantee punch that ticket and move on to get that flight into Raleigh.
So both of these teams here today not only looking to lock in a ticket into grand finals in North Carolina, but also locking in a second place finish for that scholarship money of $8,000. It's a pretty big jump from first and second, but also down from second to third as we take a look at the scholarship here. $8,000 on the line for these teams to guarantee the scholarship as well as a ticket to grand finals. Like I said, if we take a look now, both of these teams definitely want that first place of $16,000. Huge grand prize there, as everything else just kind of feels a little bit more together at $5,000 and $6,000, Scott.
Now, keep in mind, every single one of these teams has gone through the trials and tribulations of the championship series. We'll go ahead and show you what that's looked like up to this point for our format overall. It started out with 16 teams in the upper round, 16 teams down in the lower round. You lose in lower, you're out. That's it, Jackson. You go home. That's done. You lose in the upper round, well, you still got to drop down and then fight through the lowers. And for a lot of the teams we've actually seen go to this point, they didn't really lose until about the upper semifinals to maybe upper round 2. There wasn't a lot of problems for them necessarily early on. But for the team that we're looking at here, the two teams we're looking at here, they've made it all the way to the upper finals. They have not had a single mar on their record leading into this point. It's Texas A&M Maroon against Maryville, the final fight. The winner of this is guaranteed to get that $8,000 prize pool scholarship money you talked about, and then vie for the chance of that $16,000. So for Texas A&M, this is just a chance to remake history for themselves, right? To get back there once again, go for the 1-for-1. And for Maryville, which is considered one of, if not the best team currently in collegiate, this is their chance to cement that for this year and prove that they can do it against anybody, not just at big events like CCC, but also here for the championship series for Valorant.
Yeah, Maryville has been doing so much work this year, winning multiple titles, but they want the trophy at the end of the line. They want that Riot official college Valorant championship moniker on their team, and they're looking to do that today. They have an opportunity against the former champion, so this is a matchup for the ages, not only in the stakes of CVAL in general, but it's a rematch for these teams. Again, like today has just been a day of faded matchups, as we saw earlier in the broadcast between Cumberland and Winthrop. Texas A&M Maroon as well as Maryville have a history together that is it's recent. It's only been a few weeks ago that Maryville faced up against the Maroon team, the Aggies, in CECC. They went up against them twice and sent them packing twice. So this is a rematch for both of these teams, and the defending champions, the Aggies, they want to make sure that they show out strong and solidify that map pick advantage going into grand finals.
And it's not like we've seen Texas A&M struggle to knock down good teams, right? They took down Northwood, right? They took down HU Storm, which ended up being kind of a threat when it came to the lower round bracket, and they tore through a lot of the opponents that they had there. Winthrop was knocked down the other way. Fisher Navy was knocked down by Maryville, and you had major teams and major contenders, and now look where Winthrop is once again in the lower finals, guaranteeing that. So there's a very possible rematch between Maryville and Winthrop should Texas A&M take the victory, and if not, then you have Winthrop and Texas A&M in the docket for that lower finals, where we could see then the rematch for Winthrop and Maryville in Raleigh for the grand finals. There's a lot on the line, and these teams are very much so aware of that. But in the process of doing so, we have to kind of highlight the individuals themselves that really make this possible. For Texas A&M, we're really looking at how the difference maker is going to be, typically for their duelist. Aussie Frosty has always been one of the biggest names we've seen. We talk a lot about KHS stepping into kind of the supplementary duelist role alongside kind of highlighting over towards initiators. But Texas A&M are extremely popular. We've seen them before. We've got a lot of history that was just you and I, Jackson, surely, and seeing them in person and how competent they are, both as individuals to come out with confidence and also to scream out on the Valorant map and playing field just how good they can possibly be. We'll go ahead and look over more specifically now at the Maryville roster and talk about these teams.
Yeah, as we take a look now, we have Renz, Chloric, Ainge, Wildfire, and Giza. Again, this team has been making so many moves coming out from the college Valorant this year. They've been winning multiple titles left and right, and they really want to cement this here today. I'm really looking forward to see how Wildfire is able to continue to carry their team from their position.
Seen Giza for a very long time in the college scene, it feels like, and seeing them now at the very tippy top here with Maryville is a very nice feeling to see. Once again, I'm sure it is for them as well. Turn that over now over to the Texas A&M roster. I talked a little bit about Asti Frosty. You got to bring in the rest of the crew here as well. It's Joba, Asti Frosty, Bing Shilling, KHS, and Noble. This team is super, super good. They're clutch when it comes to these big finish wins. And while they can sometimes struggle in big series, like we saw over for them CCC, we talked about their losses there, the double one to Maryville. You still can look at them and say they can win big games like they did just last year. So keep your eye out for these, and also keep your eye out for what agents we're going to see them play, because they do like to kind of flex a little bit for some of their roles. Now, Joba and Bing Shilling are going to stick completely static to what they do. I'll say KHS has a little bit of flexibility. Asti Frosty is going to be your main duelist, but if you can have a very confident player like KHS can be, and we have seen them be, expect to see a little bit of pizzazz across maps. But that's going to be if we see maps that require that to be forced out of the Texas A&M side. I'm not so sure that's going to be the case. Let's go ahead and look over at our map ban selection. Fracture and Ascent were taken off the board. Lotus not being banned first, shockingly, by Texas A&M. This is arguably their worst map, meaning that, hey, it's a free pick for Maryville. Split does get picked by Texas A&M, but then there it is, Lotus on the board. Maryville take it, securing that and feeling like they'll have a good chance. So in my mind here, Jackson, if we see Maryville take Split, I think this may very well end 2-0, just how bad Texas A&M have been historically across the map of Lotus.
Yeah, and I do agree with that. I'm surprised too that they actually let it go through, because not only is it their a bad map for Texas A&M, but it's actually a really strong map coming out from the side of Maryville as well. Now, to give a little credit to Texas A&M, they oftentimes play as if they're just having fun. This is a group of guys that we got to meet in person, and they are so cohesive. They play with each other all the time, and they do have a lot of fun. But now, fun is over. This is the time to lock in. This is the time to make sure that you win grand finals, especially against a team that has researched you very well. So I don't know if they have anything left in the playbook for Lotus to maybe surprise Maryville, but Split is going to be the ultimate decider here as we jump off the start, because while it is a strong map for Texas A&M, Maryville is no slouch there either, Scott.
Yeah, and for Split, typically we see for the Aggie side, it's Yoru and Omen, Breach, Tejo, Viper. They like to stick kind of similar for what feels like current state of the game for Split, bringing in that new Tejo, Agent Ryan, and kind of working alongside that. You turn that over, though, for Maryville, they have yet to really implement across their prior selections last few months the Tejo for this map. Instead, they've gone in Breach, Cypher, Omen, Raze, Sage, for goodness sake. They still bring the Sage out for this map, right?
Yeah.
Which is so, year two, year one coded for Valorant, right? When Sage was just the queen of meta for the map of Split, using the ice barrier to lock off the entirety of mid, because for the map of Split, he who controls mid controls the entirety of this map. It feels like it's so easy to pivot between sites offensively, and taking that away even as an offensive player to strip defenders of that quick and easy rotate and force them to go back through defender spawn and limiting their viable options to retake is extremely powerful. And so for teams, they need to have agents that can really facilitate that domino effect, right? Having that ability to powerhouse through mid, control that splits, and essentially split the map of Split completely in twain. There's that lock-in for Sage, though, for Renz. What did we expect? Texas A&M have gone in. KHS over on the Tejo, Yoru for Asti Frosty, Bing over for the Omen, Noble for Breach, and then Joba onto that Raze. And you'll likely see Maryville kind of fall into what I expected before. The Breach, the Cypher, the Omen, the Raze, the Sage. It's just a strong overall agent selection. And we're seeing a hint of that old blood and as well as that new blood stepping into the pool with this agent selection for this map.
I'm liking this last minute switch over to that Viper from Jova, allowing this double controller to try and snake their way around this double Sentinel comp that Maryville is bringing on. But I do feel like the lack of Raze it might hurt Texas A&M here a little bit, because they're not able to collapse onto a site as well as they could, opting more to play a slower game when you lose that race, and this is going to be a lot of poking and prodding, using your route to try and get into that back line as well as break Cypher trips. It does look like Texas A&M not looking to play as aggressive as they normally do, and maybe that might be the change that they need to make in order to beat Maryville today.
I think we're going to see a lot of Aussie Frosty kind of poking alone, genuinely. The great thing about having a Viper for this map is it plays very similarly to Lotus for Viper play. You treat them like a Sentinel, which so much of Viper's kit is super Sentinel-y, right? You lock down a snake bite, complete close off an area, poison cloud, toxic screen. You don't really want to push through those as an offenser. So it makes it a lot easier to lock down a site by your lonesome, or even to poke and move forward like you do as Viper on the map of Lotus. And we've seen that work for a lot of teams. We've seen it work for Cumberland. We've seen it work for Winthrop, right? This is just something that you do for the map of Lotus. But when you turn it over to Split, it's almost just as viable, right? It's a very wide map. So you need to poke in a lot of directions simultaneously. You need to make sure that if a player can move forward, they can have impact and be effective in the process of doing so. So hopefully Joba can be that effective force on their offense. If they're not, they'll likely still be just as successful as a pseudo sentinel for their defensive side. Very viable for double controller meta for the map of Split. But the big lacking issue, like you said, is going to be where does that Yoru fit in? They won't be able to close the gap as effectively. It's going to be this smoke and dagger style that we talk about every week here, where you can TP in, you can make headway, but you have to do so in a way that lets the team move up alongside you, and they have to know that you're not going to be as effective at closing that gap as comparison to, say, the aggressiveness of a Raze with a double boost back.
Instantly getting punished there by Wildfire, but they're so low HP that being chilling, able to trade them out to even up the numbers. We're gonna have full control over the site, but already we see Maryville ready on this retake here. The swing's gonna come out, and Giza's gonna find two with the right clicks on the classic Chloric, able to find one as well, but it's just KHS left in this late rotation here. Maryville's gonna get the first pistol round.
Yeah, stacking up so much just around elbow on A site is diabolical to come out there for Texas A&M, giving some free right-click damage off. Major point of contention for them at the end of round one. And despite getting the credits for planting and everything else in between, they didn't get the result they wanted, but they're still going to force up for round two, which for a map like Split makes a lot of sense. You can get really close in a site here, Jackson, without giving up too much viability for lines of sight. So the main point of emphasis for round two will likely be almost total absence towards A site. You'll put your Viper over there of Joba for the time being to maybe give them an option towards ropes and to use that toxic screen solo. The rest, though, move in down mid through this alley, control this courtyard, secure as much damage and possibly kills as you can, and hope that you can maybe try to catch someone off guard. But they've held back, and they've actually using mostly Classicus to clear this out for the time being, trying to hide that they've got these stingers in the back pocket as they were trying to deal with the Rins up on top of the ice wall, and the ice wall itself as the Sentinel was trying to lock down that courtyard.
And we see the early engagement here on this Stinger Rush, a lot of damage coming out from the side of Texas A&M. This is going to force Maryville to just play back a little bit more. They don't want to swing into 5 Stingers as we saw Reds.
I don't know so the Stingers are here.
Yeah, Noble on that 1 HP already, and it's just enough for them to get the trade outs. Caloric's gonna go down. The numbers are still even on both sides, and there's just so much control coming out from the side of Texas A&M, but Maryville more than happy to play back and play a retake kind of style. Rens now should make contact here, but Paranoia is gonna push them back just a little bit. But when Bing swings, Bing's gonna hit. They're gonna find a pick onto Rens, and this should open up the B site.
Yeah, and there's no one that can sit down below on rope, and Hinge is just trying to sit back. Great shot with the Bulldog, too! Now Joba able to collect themselves, but Hinge has been too much of an issue here. Stuck now on site, Joba. Nothing really they can do besides try to go for this plant just inside of default. And Ainge, only having 14 HP, has no problem securing their 4th of this round. And Texas A&M's kind of big gamble heading into round 2 with all these Stingers hiding them at the start of the round, trying to make sure, hey, it's just classics, feel free to push us. Your weapons will be so much better than ours. And then pulling those out as they close the gap into Mail, as they secure out the top of rope, and everything else in between and Vent. Maryville just did not seem to care in the slightest, and they do lose a lot, don't get me wrong. But if you were Texas A&M, you bought a lot and you lost everything. You're still somehow, despite getting 3 kills, at the worst end of round 2.
And it's really the Guardian Angel coming out from the side of Maryville with that Bulldog to save a round. That was looking pretty bad for Maryville there, based on how much map control Texas A&M had.
Comes open.
And it just one person shooting the Sage Wall with the Classic to bait out Rens is nasty work, Scott. They almost got that trick play to go through.
Ice Wall once again goes up. They'll have 2 stingers across. The one will be likely in Austin Frosty's hand, and that is the case. And the one now in Bing Chilling's, they're just both working in tandem to try to clear out this Ice Wall, which, primary point of emphasis, if you're bringing the Sage in 2025 onto Split, it's going to be an entire defense that is working around this Ice Wall. So you need to try to shut that down as much as you can, even in rounds like this where it's such an eco and you don't really have much to work with. You want to try to get that down as quick as possible, force them back, make them question if it's going to be a male pusher, and the viability and versatility of having that split rotate over towards A. And Texas A&M know that win condition, but Bing knows the win conditions as well. Get a kill, get ahead of the competition, and try to find value, but unfortunately doesn't get what they wanted off towards Chloric, and Renz just heals them up and then swings for 2 kills, securing now a player advantage for Maryville, despite the fact they lost Renz. And now Chloric, who was low, could have and probably should have taken down Bing, but my goodness, has Bing been good on these left-handed swings.
And he hasn't taken a single, I mean, he took a little lick of damage there on these engagements. And just, how do you swing into a judge and not get hit at all? Angel once again has to play Guardian. Angel finds the 3 picks that they need to convert. I guess you could call this a bonus round for Maryville.
My goodness, Maryville 3-0 after the second round turned so dire for Texas A&M. We almost expect the third one to follow suit, but they started to make a little bit headway. Lots of damage towards Renz at the time, eventually finishing them, having to get the heal off towards Chloric, who lost that engagement towards Bing Shaling. There was all these little pieces that really started to feel like maybe Texas A&M could claw it back again, but they found no comfort on B, and there's been no real ill intent off towards A bar round 1. And it's been mostly, like I mentioned, Joba kind of prowling up by their lonesome, the same way you would on Lotus, using the toxic screen, hiding behind it, getting from one corner to one corner, letting your Viper toxic pool recount, and then popping it back up again, and doing so over and over again, constantly transiting between 2 positions to try to meet up with your team at a tertiary point. They can't just rely on this, and they need the team to be alongside and getting these kills. And there it is. Joba strikes true for the first blood in round 4, knocks down Wildfire. Now lacking that breach, which is super strong. We saw 2 rounds ago for the attempted retake on the site against Joba themselves. It's going to be a little bit harder to try to deal with that retake. You're going to be a little bit more reliant on Ange's paranoia here to try to get around these corners.
I do like the flank that Renz has now to try and pinch this from both sides. Maryville opting to play a very passive defense, getting some early information and then just poking and prodding. As you see, Renz finds that pick onto Noble. This is going to leave Texas A&M kind of scrambling here, but they should give them enough information that the B site is openish. They should be able to fall back. Giza, though, finds the spray through the smoke, and everything is just going from bad to worse for Texas A&M at the moment.
He's such a scary force. Now combo then, that was your spike carrier that goes down. They had to recollect it and halt them for just a moment on the rotate. And it's gone from bad to even worse. 5 versus 2 now. And yes, Joba can line up 2 and get a ton of damage towards Renz and secure at least 1 kill towards Giza. But you've now only got Austin Frosty left alone on towards sight. Boost pack for Chloric to try to make a little bit of gap and get a little bit of info. Loses a ton of HP, and Austin Frosty's going crazy with it, but eventually will be shut down by Wildfire. And the damage dealt between all those players on those swings will be too much to try to counter. 4-0 for Maryville, and the defensive split is proving to be quite the unfortunate beast that Maryville have in their back pocket, and it is biting against the throats of the Aggies.
And this is like, I honestly wished that they ended up playing the double duelist with the combo of Yoru and Raze, because there's just no space closers right now. Maryville is more than happy to play in their own spawn and wait for space to be taken by Renz. And this just makes it difficult. I just don't, currently in the first 4 rounds, I don't see the identity that a comp like this with Yoru should have. I don't think there's really been any difference made with that Yoru pick.
I think the crazy part as well for Texas A&M is that their offense has been typically their better side for this map against general opponents, but when it comes against really tough opponents like Maryville, like Northwood, defense typically has been a better strong suit for them in terms of consistency for round wins. So Maryville will be pretty clean on having as many defensive rounds as they can to try to survive through the possibility of that second half and the surge of rounds that are expected. And speaking of surging, it's again mid control being the name of the game for Texas A&M. They wanted to play much faster than they have the last 3 or 4, and it turned into this literal fatal funnel, Jackson, as you'd expect from what a Sage Wall can create. It does a little bit more than just locking down an angle. It forces players to give up intel, forces them to use utility if they want to jump over it, to try to circumvent it, circumnavigate it, and it also forces them to then step through the breach that they've created or waste the time to continue to break through breaches, and it makes it so you have to fight on the defender's term. It's an extremely valuable tool for a map as constrained as Split can feel like when it comes towards mid.
Absolutely, especially when you're running the Sage. The slow orbs just do so much work in splitting up the team, splitting off Aussie Frosty there. And on the side of Texas A&M, there isn't just any utility that really forces Maryville out of the positionings that they have. Yes, you have the salvos. Yes, you have the aftershock. But you can still sit at that angle for a few seconds before you really have to clear out. On the other side, Chloric, with the paint shells, as soon as those things are thrown, you have to leave the angle. It just provides so much crowd control that I think Texas A&M is actually lacking.
How much you can really do past that? Just hold on, wait things out, try to save a weapon if absolutely possible. It was Anders who used to have the conversation with me when it came to how good the Sage Wall was on Split. And when Split got taken out of the map pool, for the longest time, Jackson, I was like, oh, well, you know, it's Split. No one really loved this map. No one really hated this map. But when Split returned, Sage stopped being this end-all be-all for the map, which is why it does feel like we've got a lot of old blood energy coming out of Maryville with Renz bringing the Sage back in. It didn't feel like they were much of a necessity because there was, I think, like 5 or 6 agents added into the pool between Split's return into the pool, right? It was a very long period of time for Split to come back in. And with that, there's a lot more options in the back pocket for teams, and still seeing her be so competent, so competitively viable is a refreshing view, especially with how effective it was going into round 5, and maybe how it can be through 6 as well, as Renz will get the rotate now up above in tower, looking for a shot opportunity. Wildfire though from elbow, trying to survive the swing and sling from Bing Chiling, but not able to do so. The Stinger gets the upper hand, and Renz from above does watch the Ender Alley, and it's a Maryville round win once again.
But there's and defense is the strong suit of a map like Split, but at some point I think a timeout has to be called here from Texas A&M. They're not really able to open up a site in any way that they want. There's no reason that Giza should be able to get 2 to 3 picks when they're being flooded and they're solo holding the site. Yes, he's a Cypher, but they're not even hitting his trips. the trips are so far back, they're not placing trips anywhere up front. They're just allowing Tamu to slowly scale up the site, and Giza just manipulates the angles, picking them off one by one.
Now you got a bit of information game in the start of round 7. Texas A&M will read, hey, there is no berry orb that has been placed just yet. Since your drone has secured that intel, we're gonna try to send Aussie Frosty as far forward as we can through this alley to get a bit of intel, but Giza has kind of keyed into the idea that Joba's job is so simple, and it's going to be the only thing that stays in its entirety for Texas A&M. If they can continue to lock down this player, shut them down, you're losing a essentially pincer that Texas A&M are feeling that they have to be relying upon. It's the same weakness for the map of Lotus, which Texas A&M haven't really wanted to play that map. They probably should have banned it. This was a map that they do not go into very often, especially with success. So seeing them lock into essentially the same style of agent select as you would for that map, it's not working to the start so far through 7 rounds. But we'll have to see if round 7 can be enough of a difference maker despite that loss of first blood.
And after Giza gets the pick onto Joba, immediately repositioning their tripwires into a much more forward position. This allows them to just kind of play off A site. Now the trip has been broken, and they see the missiles come out, the salvos all being thrown at them. Giza can call for the rotates. Now, the fall line to try and combo with the paint shell to stop a plant. But they are going to be able to clear the plant down. They never clear Giza. They don't have enough intel or space close to really push them out of these positions. Now Chloric will get the pick with the showstopper, and Noble doing their best to find the 2 in this 1v2 situation. Now they still have to plant the bomb. There's only 5 seconds left. They do not have the time, Scott, and they do not have the kill either, as Ren's there to close out, and they put 7 on the board for Maryville.
I mean, you have the salvos you're using to clear out inner cubby when you have 2 players that can peek that for free while the smokes are still down.
Yes, this should be.
In my mind, when your smokes go down to layer off back of security, the most important thing there is to then peek swing, hugging right wall, that lower cubby side. Top of tower's not an issue. You've smoked it as well. You're already looking halfway that direction. your salvo should likely be used to clear out elbow, especially considering how much of a problem it was in round 1, and then obviously a problem right there in round 7, and I think it came through in round 4 as well. There's been so many times that Maryville have used that elbow to not just find 1 kill, but to find 2, to find 3, get damage off to multiple. It's been such an effective farce, honestly. It's just, it cannot be allowed to continue. Here's a copy player sitting up on boxes. It's Chloric. No longer is it Ange just holding down this side alone, though there still were there to get the buddy ace alongside Chloric. It's just 1 kill from Ange, and it's Chloric with 4 of them. No one checking that upper box, and Texas A&M paying the heavy price for it.
No, and there's no crosshair breakers either on this team. When you have a Raze that can just fly through this site, it really forces these cheeky angle holders to readjust their crosshair, and the crossfires being set now from Maryville are just way too strong with this Heaven and Box. Yes, they got flash, but it doesn't matter. The picks still come through because they do not have the time to clear out Chloric there. And it's just a tough offensive half coming out from the side of the Texas A&M, but I just don't know. I don't really see much hope for them so far on the defensive side, except for the fact that Maryville also has a very slow moving comp other than the Rays.
Slow play prowl. Texas A&M have already gotten themselves a good way through mid. Not a big heavy contestant so far from Renz. They've started to fall back a little bit. They're trying to be unreadable. In the same way that Joba's been very readable for the side of Texas A&M as the Viper play has to be consistent. Maryville's trying to make sure that they're staying as versatile and constantly changing and ever-flowing, evolving of their defense. Joba, though, does swing into a lonesome Sage of Renz and does get them down. There's a Rolling Thunder used from up above in tower, and it's countered immediately back by Maryville's own. So all of the speed that you would have liked to have from Texas A&M has been thrown back in your face as Giza moves away from elbow, swings through the two, and they line up. Oh my goodness, it's 4 for Giza. The absolute slaughter on site. One more KHS waiting for a bit of intel off of the swing here from Ange, maybe hoping to get the ace for Giza, but they don't have to give up anything. The win is the ultimate condition for them. And they're making a lot of noise off to the other side. Ange gets dusted, and there's Giza with the heavy swing from outside the security door. And my goodness, have Maryville made a statement piece in the first half. It's through 10 rounds now, 9 of which are victories as they start up their 10th.
They just don't have the positioning here from Texas A&M to capitalize off of that Rolling Thunder. You already committed onto site to get Giza out. How is he still acing? Well, it's because there's no one to close that gap. They don't have a dash. They don't have satchels. The teleport isn't even coming there in time. And the counter Rolling Thunder, all of that was just to protect Giza. Well done from the side of Maryville.
A scary, scary player on an unbelievably scary team. And Maryville are proving that they are the #1 ranked team in collegiate. But they still have to go through a lot more to prove that 100%. But they're trying to tell everybody right now that that is the case. And it's a slow prowl once again. Stingers have been kind of the forte weapon for Texas A&M. I don't think I'm wrong here, Jackson. I think I've seen Stingers in their hands now more often than I've seen actual rifles. And more kills, it feels like, out of these Stingers than I have seen majority rifles for the roster. Especially when it comes to Big Shilling and their heavy left-handed swings up through Mail and up into the upper side of Heaven on B site. It's been effective. But the team has not been able to work alongside it, and the team has not been able to find the impact frags necessary to solidify even a spike plant in these recent rounds. And it's going to continue to be a problem if they're losing important pieces of the puzzle, that now being Noble as an initiator, not having that breach to make major headway in towards the site, and they'll have to rotate fast towards A in hopes to catch whoever's there alone, maybe off guard, as the Yoru clone does get away with one. Joba and seeing Aussie Frosty get a frag, one with the Sheriff, the latter now with a Stinger. It's a man advantage for Texas A&M on site.
And the Viper Spin's gonna come out as well after the plant. Renz will get the res off onto Giza to bring the numbers back up to even, and weaponry not really strong on the side of Texas A&M, but they do have the Viper Spin to wait in here. This is going to be all on KHS to see if they can get that late flank just enough. Austin Frosty's going to snipe Chloric out the sky, but the trades are going to be coming. Even Joba making a lot of work on that Sheriff. Renz in the 1v2. They're going to slip by each other in the Viper's Pit. Now the spray's going to come through with the Phantom, but it's going to be Joba to finally convert the first round for Texas A&M.
Renz reading into the timer, seeing their health decaying, and goes, well, I have to make my move right now or it's nothing. praise for the shot into the corner of Joba, just hiding just at the edge. When you see that the Viper's Pit is not 100% into the corner, that's the #1 guess. But Joba is hiding within it and shocks the round out from underneath Maryville and keeps them from a perfect half to this point. 9-1 our total score, and Texas A&M are going to be hoping that they can find something out of really nothing, because that round really revolved around the responsibility of Joba once again, which feels like this is Texas A&M. They have to have Joba go crazy. Now they're going to put a lot more on the back shoulders of Aussie Frosty. There's Joba again, first blood though. Aussie Frosty, one more. Dimensional drifting and VTOLing, escaping from it and using their control of back of sight to take a player off towards rafters. There's your tower. Sin from a showstopper. Wow. But nothing making impact and not even really any damage as Texas A&M are dicing apart the Maryville defense.
Joba finally answering the call for Texas A&M, finding the 2 quick picks that they need. Chloric's gonna find the first with Aussie Frosty to trade out. Now it's just Angel left in the 1v4, opting to save the Vandal instead because these rounds have been getting a little bit too close for comfort. And yes, they've built up a huge economy with that 9-0 start, but they still want to make sure that they can purchase weapons for the rest of their team.
Angel falling back a little bit, just holding top of ropes. If anyone does want to pressure, they won't worry too much about it. They'll go for maybe an exit frag here, trying to keep Ange back. And eventually Bing Shaling will get that kill, and this would be a 2-round win now in a row for Texas A&M after the 9 that Maryville followed through with. And it's 1 round left now in this first half, and the last chance for Maryville in defense to try to reach that double digits already. And we know how split can be, Jackson. Typically, it's one side having a very dominant lead over the other, but both of these teams, statistically, are sitting a little bit more even when it comes to their history along this map, especially in this last 3-4 months, it feels like. Texas A&M had a very good stance on their offense, and while we haven't seen that here, they've been good. Their defense has been great. Maryville are good on both sides. They're a little bit more even across the board. But we're just not seeing enough from the offense of Texas A&M. Their defense has to really shock the world, shock the viewership right now for the championship series in hopes to return this comeback. And it's got to start here, getting their 3rd round win. And this is not the right start to it as Renz escapes out from the dark cover. Stewie 2K impersonation, folks, and gets themselves 2 kills by escaping as well all the way back towards Rose.
Huge play coming out from Renz there. Sneaking through the smoke, finding the 2 picks, catching Texas A&M off guard. Now Bing still holding the angle here. Reds trying to get the wall bangs through to see if they can just provide some chip damage. Smoke's gonna cover heaven here as they're gonna try and swing in to ropes. Renz able to get away with their life. Another hit from Texas A&M, looking over more towards that B side. 3 players left on the side of the Aggies, and Ainge still lurking, holding on to B.
30 seconds.
They're gonna try and push into spawn here, but Renz still holding the angle. They're gonna spot them out, and I love exactly how Renz is playing, always making sure to maintain sight control, numbers control, playing back. Ainge to find one as well. Neurodeath invested to try and figure out where KHS is. They're gonna ping him out.
10 seconds left.
Full control of the spike, and it's gonna be looking like the 10-2 have coming out from the side of Maryville as they finally clean up. Well, not exactly the start that you want if you're the Aggies.
Switching sides.
Talk a lot about how double digits is that checkpoint or chokehold. For most maps, it's typically a sign of things to come. But for a map like this, it can a lot of the times be more of a choke point, right? It is pretty easy to have one side dominate over the other, like I mentioned, but it's also pretty easy to be dominant when it comes to gaming if you use our sponsor here, Exit Lag, our official partner. Make sure to use code GGWP to get yourself a big percentage off for a discount. Why would you want to use Exit Lag though, Jackson? It reduces lag, connection instability, and packet loss for a smoother gaming experience. And these players want the smoothest gaming experience possible because the winner of this goes on to guarantee at least $8,000 in prize pool, right? You're going to try to fight for your best, so you want to use the best alongside it.
The Aggies are going to have to bring their best now on this defense. It's going to be super important for them to win these pistol rounds. Paranoia to come out and push back the angles. Joba already here to support on site, but they're taking so much damage from these paint shells. Aussie Frosty gets the pick, but Renz to trade out, and this just too much flood coming out from the side of Maryville for Texas A&M to deal with.
this is the perfect read, right, Jackson? You step out with numbers. A lot of players were already hurt, but it doesn't matter if everyone gets hurt if you still have players still remaining. The reflexes are good enough for these individuals to try to swing off each other and not let Texas A&M get away with a lineup. The KHS direct into sight. Flank being watched by Noble, making sure nobody can wrap back around. You're worried about Giza. Giza's not been spotted. He knew they were there off of a kill earlier. KHS is making a ton of noise as Noble does go down. A KHS on site, ghost in hand, tapping the spike, trying to stick this to half, does get there. KHS forced away, and Giza pounces from up above in heaven, sending them the other way, and it's Maryville getting the pistol, cementing 11 now, and very much so possibly getting their chance for 12. And in Texas A&M, after you bought in round 2 of this series and failed, you're now looking at that once again and going, well, we have to do it now. It was a conscious decision by us in round 2, but round 14, there is no option. We must force out here.
Do not want to give up match point by any means. This is going to be that make or break round, because if they get I guess like anti-eagled here by Maryville, they're gonna go up to match point and they will force the Aggies into yet another save buy. So now we see the hits gonna come out from Maryville over onto that A side. The crossfire being set here from KHS and Noble. But with stingers in hand, it may not be enough. You see the double satchels in to dodge the fall line, but Noble putting out that fall line just in time to delay the rest of the push. He'll be able to single out Chloric and get that first pick.
Big value found from Joba's toxic screen. Honestly, it's kept a lot of the team back, and it's just about kind of playing in parallel alongside that utility. Like I said, no Sentinel, which means so much of this is reliant on your pseudo Sentinel of Joba on that Viper. They're playing it comfortably. They won't have many chances to do so if they don't start to find round wins and shut down this Maryville offense. Ainge is going to be the first person to look forward. Osti, Frosty, and KHS working together. Good swing, but a little slow from Osti, and not enough coming out of the back pocket from KHS. It's only a 1 for 2, still negative, and now evening the odds as Texas A&M lose out that fight. It's 3 versus 3. Maryville are closing in towards site. Noble flashing around the bend, trying to get Rins. Lines up both, but while you do get damage to Rins and Wildfire, you didn't find the kill you needed, leaving just Joba and Bing alone. And the spike is deep within the back of sight, planting and waiting as they try to secure their frag towards Giza and do so. Wildfire alone, getting paranoid, swung now from elbow round the corner, giving away the position right quick, and there it is from Bing Shaling. Texas A&M do pull out this round and secure round 14.
And I wonder what, you know, anxiety Maryville had in waiting to plant the spike after they got the pick onto Noble. Perhaps they were expecting a few more backside. Bing and Joba were playing so slow that it honestly ended up working in their favor, because they had no idea that they would push out of heaven together. As we see now in that first pick, Noble able to isolate Chloric there and get the picks that they needed. Trades coming out from both sides. Noble almost playing the hero there, but in the end, it's going to be Bing and Joba to close out that round and prevent match point for Maryville.
What can round 15 spell? Well, if you're Maryville, not likely much. It's just classics in hand. They're not going to do what we saw Tamu do on their reattempt for the third round of the half, where they went ahead and said, okay, 3 sheriffs and 2 stingers. It's just sheriffs. While they can get a lot off of the top from this, Rins will not have the same lap of luxury. Osti Frosty goes for a heavy swing through Mail, gets themselves a kill, and punishes a player off towards Vending. Now you've got Maryville, who've got Giza far deep into space, just outside of A main, and just waiting at the gateway, the precipice, entry in towards site, as Joba gets now the 2nd kill of the round for this Texas A&M roster. This one off towards Ange, and Chloric, they have to deal with KHS sooner than they wanted. Does Giza make the call, or has Giza made the call out that KHS is already crossed from the crosshair placement here of Chloric? I don't think that's the case, and the same thing from Wildfire. They don't know KHS is already within this space, which should levy up a free kill here, but they missed the first chance. But that's your spike down, and now Maryville don't have even an opportunity to get the spike into their control, as Chloric gets 1 and kill, but that's all that will be surmised. It's Maryville losing yet another one, as the Texas A&M roster gets 4.
Yeah, this was a round that you expected Texas A&M to win based on the weaponry that they had. So things are going to get a little awkward now for Texas A&M. Do you fully reinvest into these rounds? Yes, you absolutely must, because it is a bye round coming out from Maryville, and any slip-up, Scott, is going to put Maryville in that match point, which you don't want. You want to be able to bring this as close as possible before you let Maryville get another round. As we see now, the defense has shifted over to that B side. Austin Frosty with that trusty outlaw in hand. There's going to be a jump swing by Bing, but there's so much damage coming out from those paint shells and those fault lines that they force Texas A&M back. Austin Frosty have to rotate, teleport all the way towards A, but now they're going to try and reinforce B.
Jobo will take a swing as they want to cross over and rotate possibly between B and A. And I talked a little bit about how as an offensive team, you typically try to get control here of mid to stop defending teams of having that as the option. They've got to go through defender spawn to get across site. You also want to make sure you can shut down the possibility for attackers to use that as a way to quickly move between A and B side as the resurrection will come out now from Rins. They want the player advantage, and they did get their kill towards KHS, and using that Sage allows you to do so quite well. As Ainge even now lops off their doppelganger, Bing Shaling, who take a bit of heavier swing, it feels like, Jackson, out through and into garage and pays the price accordingly.
Yeah, no information whatsoever. Brent, with that round 3 res, it's just nasty work. Austin Frosty's going to get forced out of that angle by the paint shells, and Chloric not missing a beat, taking that down. Now Noble on site to try and stop the plan, but it's not enough. Joba also instantly gets taken out as well. That's match point coming out for Maryville.
Oh, 12 already, just 17 rounds in, and Texas A&M haven't really found the answer for how to break this down. And keep in mind, Lotus is not a map that the Texas A&M roster are going to be very keen on. It's not something they wanted. This was Texas A&M's map pick, and they're being pieced apart. And even if they lose this, and even if they were to lose out against Maryville on map 2 as well, as they move over to Lotus for map 2, they still have their chance. They drop down to the lower bracket for that lower finals. That'll be on tomorrow on broadcast. A full best of 5 to try to shut down that Winter roster and do their best to get through once again off towards Raleigh this time. But this is a team that you'll look at facing once Jackson and be like, man, what did we do and what could we do to fix that? And it's going to take all of your strategic coaches, all of your players and staff, and all your coaching behind them to be like, okay, this is what we do, and we still know they're going to change up nearly everything between now and the end of May and the start of June 1st.
Rolling Thunder being invested from Wildfire as they try to take B, but it is just a bit of a bait. Most of the hit coming from that mid angle. Reds so nasty on that Sage pick, finding that first blood again onto Joba. This should open up mid here as they're going to try and go for this pincer attack. Wall's going to get put up by Austin Frosty here to hold it down in the held position. They find 2, but they'll eventually get traded out.
Up above, Austin Frosty eventually does get eviscerated by Giza. 3 versus 2, Texas A&M at a player disadvantage, looking at the end of match point, and they're staring down the end of a barrel. And KHS has to clear away the trap wire they've stepped into, trying to destabilize that entry. Alley is just not going to work out for Texas A&M. And though you do get a good flash for Noble, Ainge is just ready to swing pillar, and it's a 13-4 ending tally for the finale of Split. Texas A&M's map pick, by the way, but unfortunately, it's gotta fall in Maryville's favor in a decisive manner. They just got too much of a lead off the start, 9-0, and even securing double digits quickly afterwards. It's about as clean of a finish you could ask for.
Tough break coming out from the side of Texas A&M there. They really just did not have a footing on that map at all. So we take a look at the game stats in just a bit. A lot of this comes from the attacking side from Texas A&M because that's where they got the full half. But they were never really able to close any space. They were never really able to capitalize on any of the utility that their breach was able to set aside. Giza, how many times did we see Giza just play in elbow and multi-frag? Like, it should not have happened that many times. And I don't think this is not a skill thing. It's really just the cohesion between utility was not there, Scott.
Yeah. I don't even think it was just Giza playing an elbow when it came to ace side, right? It was also Wildfire, and I think Wildfire was the more threatening presence there, right? Giza was good anywhere they were put. Whether it was screens, whether it was elbow, whether it was over towards B site instead, they were good no matter where you put them, and they were effective. Tower holding, when they double crossed with Rens, when they would both transit away from the mid link and they would walk through ropes, right? Every one of these was good for them. But you had these important players for utility that really shut down so much that came out from Texas A&M. And when you know that you have those that can work together, you know you have essentially that win condition button, you're going to use it. And Wildfire, yes, they didn't get the most kills in that map, and they went the craziest force. I do think that they were arguably the most impactful player for the offense and theoretically for the defense from Maryville, that they give my nod when it comes to how well they locked things down. Turn that over towards your duelist choices, and Caloric was not that far behind in terms of kill tally for the rest of the team. 14 kills in the name. We'll get a little bit more in depth when it comes to the stats at some point, but you'll see those numbers in front of you. Caloric was so good on both sides of the field, and that's not something you typically see from a Raze on defense. It's a little hard to use Raze like that, but the paint shells were so clean. The showstopper almost every single time found impact, bar I think one time that was used where it didn't really connect the way they wanted it to, but it did flush them away from where they wanted to put the spike at first. Every one of these is kind of that win condition thing, or saying, I need this player to step up when necessary, and everyone did for Maryville, and that's why the scoreline looks so disparaging for the side. 13-14 is nothing to scoff at.
Yeah, and speaking of Caloric, they had really good space denial on the defensive side, using paint shells whenever they needed to sort of act like a pseudo molly and not allow any of the rest of Texas A&M to kind of snowball off any Euro TPs or even Omen Stratus steps onto B site. It just seemed like anytime you have a Euro pick, the game becomes very unpredictable, right? Like they can teleport anywhere, fakes, flashes, initiate for their team, but there wasn't anyone for Yoru to really initiate for. Everyone else on the side of Texas A&M is a slow moving composition. They can't really capitalize off of that, and over time the attacks from Texas A&M just became very stale. It was hit mid, get picks, see if they can open up any sites, but they were also down in eco quite often. You had loss bonus, but you're bringing stingers about 4 to 5 of those of 9 rounds. It just made it very difficult for them to even play a poke and prod kind of strategy.
And don't get me wrong, stingers are good, all right? They're good, I guess. I mean, they were really good for a while, then they kind of got nerfed, but they're good. But I'd rather you have rifles in your hand. I'd rather you not kind of waste the chance of round 2 and try to get eco into the back pocket, right? Try to get the ball rolling, because it felt like once it got bad, momentum carried in for Maryville, and they just continued to pound the rock. I think the stats are ready for a little bit more of an in-depth look for how things broke down. You'll see very early on that there's a big difference between the top 4 of Maryville and the top 2 of Texas A&M. 13, 15, 9, 7, and 5 for the kill department. Comparison, 4 out of the 5 were in double digits. And I think Wildfire's kills were some of the most important ones, like down in elbow, the clutch down, and the utility use for the offenses for Texas A&M, where they're using it from upper heaven side on B side and flushing them off so they can deal with Joba, who was in a 1v2 and a very dangerous presence because they were full HP. And meanwhile, Ange and Wildfire were not. Very low. 20 HP for Ange at the time, and I think like 60 HP for Wildfire, and not really a player you want to have take that fight with the weapon that they had. These were big rounds that Texas A&M needed to get in their back pocket, and important players in clutch plays kind of saved the day. So I think Wildfire's kills were the most impactful alongside that utility, but you cannot scoff at every single player on the side of Maryville, bar Wildfire, having over 200 ACS, nearly 300 for Giza, all of them having double digits. This is just how you expect to look at this Maryville roster, and they're gonna take the limelight from at least one player on the team, and it happened to be Wildfire this time. But Texas A&M have to be a more consistent team stepping over to map 2 on a map that isn't even their pick.
And what those stat cards don't really show is how many assists these players on Maryville actually had. We had 3 players in double-digit assists. Just shows how well they swing for each other. The stat line and the highlights may make it seem as if these were individual plays by Giza, by Ange, but a lot of it was just controlling the macro of Split. And like I said, it's not like Maryville was playing up front, right? A lot of their defense was played from their own spawn. They just allowed Texas A&M to slowly creep up onto site, let them utilize whatever initiation utility they had to just even get a foot on the site, and never even had information about where Maryville was playing. Now you hear the tap spike, there's utility flying in 360-degree directions, and you're dealing with crossfires that you never even thought would be there.
And now you turn it over on a paper mache map, right? Like it's just going to get worse when crossfires exist, and they don't even have to swing you to necessarily fire from them. And we saw how good Maryville were at having the information ahead of the game. I feel like we're playing a completely different esport. There's drones flying about, and there's not even a Sova on the board, right? There's So much there, it feels like, for Maryville, and I don't think it's going to stop. But Texas A&M, prove me wrong. I've seen you play so darn good before. Show me that once again. But before then, we're going to take a quick break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with more Valorant action. Let's see how this one gets done. We've seen the error of Texas A&M's ways when it comes to the map of Split, but can they make up for it as they head over to their opponent's map pick of Lotus? Time will tell, but time is quickly arising, Jackson. And we've got to start guessing about how this one's going to go down. Let's talk a little bit about what I think the agent selection is going to look like here. For Texas A&M, I've got my predictions for it. I think it'll be Breach, Omen, Raze, Tejo, and Vice. And it's not hard to make that prediction for them. It's something they brought, but since I don't play this map too often, it's a little bit hard to 100% guess what they're thinking.
Yeah, and on the other hand, this is one of the most played maps for Maryville.
For
and
anyone, really.
they play so much of this, and they've run so many different iterations on Lotus. And it's kind of hard to predict what they bring in here. I think with what is on the line, locking in a spot at Grand Finals, locking in a spot for second place for sure, I think they go with their tried and true comp, which surprisingly involves a Yoru. So I do think that we are going to see the Breach, Cypher, Omen, Tejo, and Yoru come out for the side of Maryville here.
Wouldn't be surprised. Honestly, Ren's, is it going to be Ren's that plays this? There's no way they could put Ren's. Yeah, they're going to put Ren's on it. Ren's actually playing the Sage last map was the oddity. You don't typically see it fall the other way, right? So we'll see it lock in. The Yoru's a smart pick. Austin Frosty will in fact go over towards the Rays. So no major changes just yet for either of these two side. Yoru is super strong for the map of Lotus. We've seen it work many a time for many teams, but it does have its quirks. It's a little bit of problems here and there. We saw it obviously plague Texas A&M on Split. It was very hard for them to really close that gap, feel like they could find value from it on defense. And when they moved over towards offense, they couldn't get the ball rolling well enough with it. And not even the Dimensional Drift really saved them that much. I guess it gave them their second ever round win after they used the Viper's Pit to secure the one before. But it didn't do a whole lot individually because it could only get so much information when no one's actually on that site, bar one person. Unlike a map like Lotus, where when a player is there, because these sites and the ways into these sites are fairly congested, when you use that VTOL, that Dimensional Drift, you see 4 or 5 players, right? You're seeing almost the whole team in the process of using it, even though it's been nerfed a little bit and its total time tally is not 12 seconds anymore, but 10. You still see a whole heck of a lot of information from it, and it's going to find a lot more instantaneous value overall for the team. And there's Texas A&M locking their side. Austin Frosty of the Race, KHS for the Teo, Bing Shilling on the Omen, Noble over for Breach, and Joba onto that Vise. Joba playing essentially the same role as they did just last map, where instead of it being the Viper, which is still also very competitive for this map to play in as a lone prowler, it's that Vise instead. So offensively, expect them to be the poker, maybe more towards B and C this time around instead of that A player that kind of hits there alone. And maybe expect Texas A&M to be a little bit more keen on taking A side as a team in comparison, and then let Joba off the leash elsewhere.
Yeah, and this is going to be, like we said, a very strong map for Maryville. Texas really has their work cut out for them, playing a bit more of a traditional comp here on Lotus. I really want to see if Joba is able to carve this map up a lot better than they were on Split there. A lot more opportunity, especially now they don't have to dedicate their body to flank watch. Utility is more than enough. But first, they'll be on the defensive side as Austin Frosty trying to take early aggression on a Rebel, but it's Giza to find the first pick on C Mount.
Range goes down and gets themselves a chance for more. It's a trade 1-for-1 for either side, though, and to be frank, it's not like Maryville's gotten a big leeway off towards a site, but a fallback plan made by the two players close on door link, and Texas A&M will vacate all of A site, and it should be a free plant for Maryville nonetheless. Default just on the inside wall, cupped in for a player to be inside tree and maybe one towards drop. But you also have Renz up above who's watching just outside, just above the top of rope in this higher side with Wildfire nearby, ready to flash things out for Renz at a moment's notice or more to try to stun and contest, as the paint shells will force Renz back. Maybe Wildfire re-steps up to hope to get that, but couldn't do so well enough. It's fragged easily back in return, but Joba drops around once again, gets themselves one on top, and it's a hard hold towards side as Chloric is alone. Has to peek into this. Joba low, doesn't have the HP they want to have, but that's why you have to just stick this defuse, and you got to commit to that swing, Chloric. And Texas A&M secure a round 1 victory off a defuse.
What's the old adage? Pros don't fake. So we see their KHS holding down the line, holding down the spike. Joba doing really a good job holding that wider angle, preventing Chloric from getting the swing that they needed onto the spike, buying just enough time for them to defuse it. Well done coming from the side of Texas A&M. They get the first round on the board. And I love the aggression that's coming out from Texas A&M right now. Despite being slaughtered on Split, they are still playing this. It is a new map. It may be a map that is Maryville's best, but Texas A&M are not going to go down with that.
So many off towards mound. It's Texas A&M trying to get an early fight to contest, and Maryville not really sure how to fare against that. They want to try to take fights at a semi-distance where the Sheriffs can still one-tap, but where it's not such an easy brawl for these Guardians in hand for the defense of Texas A&M to really to work well against. They do get one weapon out of Joba's hands, and they'll now hold it on A site. Lacking a player just a little bit behind. That's Chloric hoping for just one in front, and that will be the case. Austin Frosty, easy spot, and the Ghost just has to hit 2 headshots here, and you'll have a free weapon as well, and there it is. Takes a little bit of time for Chloric, but it's not the worst case scenario. And if you wait for a teammate's smoke, it could just get worse. It's Renz, one more to the team's name, why don't you? It's a 3 versus 2, and well, yes, Bing can stinger down one more. They damaged the player on site, a damaged KHS just off site, but you can't buy enough time in the post plant, and it's going to come down to a very short tally. Is this one stickable by Bing
Ooh.
Shaling? It's going to be close and just barely enough time. They'll get it. And the salvos sent out by Chloric just needed a little bit more extra pizzazz on top, waiting out 30, 40th milliseconds. And maybe we see Maryville take that round.
And honestly, the round there was almost lost by Texas A&M. We saw them kind of like fake clear the B flank, but didn't truly clear it. That's what allowed Chloric to get in this huge position, converting a weapon over to their side. And now we'll see that the buys are still fairly even, since Wildfire did have to force up there on that second round. But now we see the paint shells and the fault line come out from the side of Texas A&M. They really want to make sure they maintain this mound aggression, which is going to allow Joba to solo hold the A site by themselves. We have to see if Maryville recognizes that, or are they going to opt to fight for this aggression. Renz finds the pick with the collateral on the Outlaw. Ainge making quick work of the rest of the Texas A&M team. So well done on the buy round coming out from the side of Maryville as they put one on the board.
I mean, Maryville did exactly what we needed them to do in round 2. Get a ton of weapons dropped out of Texas A&M's hands, right? 4 to 5 is a crazy stat line. That's a round win, even if they don't get the win. But on top of that, they got the spike down. So it's even more credits to their name. They got those kills. They earned them. That was something that Texas A&M didn't get to do at all in the first half, right? When they were forcing up every time in round 2 and 3. They had to. They weren't getting the kills. And even if they did lose, and if they did get kills, like we saw in round 2 of the first half, they weren't able to start off strong enough because they had bought stingers the entire time. And Rins, what a just hold down the D key and just start walking into the face of the competition. I think that's the win condition right now for Maryville, and they're aware of that. This is a rifle round for Texas A&M, in case you weren't paying attention. 3 weapons already dropped just 15 seconds into the meat of the round, and it's a plant already for the Maryville side.
Paranoia fault line, missiles coming out from the side of Maryville to push back any aggression that the Aggies were trying to put there on Rumble. And instant save has to be the call here coming out from Texas A&M as they lost the site way too quickly. And it's pretty much, this might as well be a flawless round coming out from the side of Maryville there, just reading the defense to perfection.
Keep in mind as well, they did this, and the only person to take any damage was Renz. And look at their HP.
They got tickled.
Enemy remaining.
Here.
I want a replay of
They're
that.
gonna
Cement that right now. I need that in like 20 times slow-mo. Just that kill in 20 times slow-mo. Gonna make the replay team hate me. Change all of your production behind the scenes things. I need that in 20 times slow-mo. The walking headshots, absolutely ridiculous. But the rest of this was a moving highlight reel for Rins as well. I mean,
yeah.
just a crazy.
Enemy remaining.
Oh,
Bro.
that's just disgusting. You look at the first 2 kills, and it's a sidestep, stop, perfect headshot flick, sidestep, stop, perfect headshots. Tracing, third's good. The 4th one, though, is just ludicrous. And that's Maryville's way to get things up to a 2-2 stat line. And with that being the proper rifle round that Texas A&M are really hoping to continue their spree with, yeah, this was bad. This was a bad look. And Maryville now have another eco round against them where, yes, Bing does have a rifle, but you just can't rely on a single Vandal to get the job done. You got to get your team a kill or 2 each, if possible, on some of these more important players to get these ultimates charged online.
Rose Garden gonna come out from the side of Joba to try and even up the weaponry here, as they're gonna try swing with the Sheriff, but they swing into 2 as Maryville playing together so well. Austin Frosty will get the Constellation trade, but he's here to clean up as the ult wears down. Austin Frosty still finding yet another one now. 1v2 does have a showstopper in hand, goes with it. 1 satchel in, see if they can isolate, find the pick. No, Chloric is the one that take the head off of Austin Frosty as they get the go-ahead round.
Aussie Frosty has been so clean overall in pretty much any series you'll ever see from Texas A&M. But unfortunately, in that moment, they went for the heavy hitter. They tried their hand, and they got tested and put down, buried 6 feet under. Texas A&M are now once again looking at the worst side of a map. 3-2. The difference not super wide. And they've already gotten half the total rounds they totally gained in map 1. Hey, confidence booster, but also kind of a demoralizer saying that. So apologies for that. Pat yourselves in the back nonetheless. But they used ultimates in that round, something that I said they were really fighting to get online. Joba going for the garden. Good idea. It's an eco round. You have one rifle. Use that, but that would have been so much better if it was a rifle and rifle round, and you have Vandals and Phantoms to work against now these Sheriffs or Classics and the opposing side's hands. Armageddon does come out here in this one, though, for Chloric. Well, they do get a kill. They lose 2 teammates nearly instantly afterwards, and the Spike will have to rotate away from the precipices of B and start to get maybe off towards A, where there is currently a fight from Giza and Asti Frosty. They know that Asti Frosty is there, but they haven't yet been able to finish that job.
Aftershock here to try and get them off the angle, but the rest of the team is already there to support. Noble finds the 2 picks. Asti Frosty finally goes down, but it's now Wildfire left in the 1v3. They do have control of the Spike, and you should be able to at least get the plant down unless they opt to fight here on Rubble. Angle is isolated, but Bing is the one that hits the shots. 3 for Bing. Texas A&M tied up.
3-3. And honestly, if you're Maryville at this point, you're looking at this saying, okay, that's fine. We forced out a couple ultimates before. We forced them to re-engage with an Armageddon. We'll take our wins where we positively can. But so much of that B push and the attempted speed, you're relying on the Yoru of Rins to try to make headway with that. And I'm not really seeing the utility of Rins be this deciding factor just yet. You can feel free to correct me if I'm wrong here, Jackson.
No, we will.
I give you permission here. But I don't think the Yoru util has been this crazy thing right now for Maryville. I think Rins could be doing this on nearly any agent. So I'd like to see the Yoru be let off the leash maybe a little bit more. I talked a little bit how they can be kind of left alone in a lot of ways as a Yoru on this map. Maybe like to see them trust in the rest of the team to kind of stay alive and be capable of doing so, as Asti Frosty to get first blood, knew they were there though behind that box, so they'll use the breach yield to flush them out and then shut them down. It's Wildfire with the first frag back for Maryville.
Giza always seems to be able to find one of their own. Rolling Thunder is going to get put out, as Noble is going to try and get the pick here with the Aftershock, but
No way.
Giza is just getting away with murder. Time and time again, Noble finally clears them out, but that's just so much damage taken from the side of Texas A&M as we get to see Maryville plant over on the C site. Joba trying to do their best to wither the storm. The spam through the wall finds the pick onto Wildfire. The Spike is going to get dropped. Now numbers back in favor of Texas A&M.
This defense is suffocating, it feels like. Never really gets the free space and movement you would like if you're Maryville, which is the perfect condition. Chloric, though, jumping to hide away. Tossing a little bit of utility back, trying to keep someone away from Waterfall, but both players are already deep within, trying to stun away one. Knows the Noble's there. The flash will force them to turn the other way. 18 HP, 5 bullets. This would have been the perfect chance to reload. It doesn't even matter. Noble didn't need the headshot. A single shot could have done it. Noble will also get the defuse to secure 4 now for Texas A&M. And this half is a lot more like what we wanted to see overall for Split. Maryville are struggling against Texas A&M on Lotus, but it's still anyone's game through these first 7, now heading into round 8.
I love the adjustment that's coming out from the side of Texas A&M. Not really putting too much aggression on these A Rebel holds unless they've gotten the information that the hit is there or they're able to isolate. Usually Joba here spraying through the wall is the one that saved the round. Chloric made it a little close, but in the end it was just too much to handle with only 18 HP.
Point out as well that you used the From the Shadows your Andrew in that last round to get all the way towards Defender spawn. We saw that 2 weekends ago as well. This time, though, unlike what we saw 2 weekends ago with Cumberland, it didn't work. It was not effective. Yeah. Shut down immediately by Asti Frosty at the time, but then tried to boost pack away. Shut down back in return by Wildfire. Maybe a little bit more innovativeness right now out of Maryville. And we talked a little bit when we wanted to see that from Texas A&M, knowing that they had the Yoru. We're not seeing any innovativeness right now from Maryville on their offense. Even considering that they have the Yoru, but also trying to use that from the shadows a little too tongue-in-cheek. Very obvious play. As a great crossfire set up between Bing and KHS, that will be a free frag and not a single kill found for the side of Maryville. Very similar to what we saw in round 6 or 5 at the time when Maryville swung out and had Rens get 3 kills and then a 4th right at the end where nobody was really able to fight back, except this time all 5 did die, and Texas A&M are the side coming with the victory. It's 3 in a row for them.
Yeah, Maryville now with the timeout. And just to go back to an earlier point that you made, you were correct. I don't see the significance of the Yoru utility right now. It just seems that they're just getting the free picks that they need just based on the weapons. He could have done this with any agents, But you need to see more tricks coming out from the Yoru, right? You need to see the utility drone, and maybe that use of utility will mess up some of the server rates and cause some lag. But not if these players have exit lag, Scott, because no lag means no limits. You ensure a proper collection to make sure that you never get any frame drops, and that just may be what is going to help out Maryville here.
Oh, how unstoppable can you truly be? Well, it feels pretty darn unstoppable when you have the right utility in front of you. And while you could talk about our partner, or you could talk about the utility in the back pocket of these agents, I think it all holds true right now. Maryville needing that timeout to try to figure out, okay, we're heading into this round, not really too much in the back pocket. We're stretching the eco pretty thin. We want to equalize the credit count, but two players are not going to have everything. So going with speed. What's the best way to make up for their shortcomings in the credit department? Well, I got a pretty darn good one here, Jackson. Just run at the enemy. Every gun can shoot back if you're closing the gap close enough, so get the team out there to do so. They use the utility here for the Teo, getting a little bit of information. They'll circumvent the Omen one-way dark cover. They'll get control now over towards Mound, and with this big control here towards Mountain, they could try to fight into C, but they need to make sure that they have no one watching Waterfall. And they want to try to get these ult orbs to play that kind of macro economy game. Maybe get Chloric here with that use of the Armageddon if necessary, or just you wait for the Rolling Thunder. Perfect chance. You got to create the opportunity, though. Can't wait for that perfect moment. Got to make it instead.
And now we see the defensive adjustment coming out from Texas A&M. No longer playing into that aggression, falling back. This is almost exactly what Maryville did to them on Split. Maybe this is how you counter the Yoru with the comp that doesn't have that space closer. You just increase the space, increase the distance that the Yoru has to travel into, where their utility can no longer be as viable. As you see now, Texas A&M able to string together the rounds that they need and still holding sights. And this is probably the longest so far I've seen all day between these two teams
left.
before a pick has been taken.
Oh, there's the Rolling Thunder. They were waiting for it, and yes, Bing was in the perfect corner to scrape one kill. One in Waterfall. Hange does get a second. And now Maryville have control now over towards Seaside. Not enough utility in Texas A&M's back pocket. No ultimates or anything to really stop this. And so the denial, not there. Every player now has collected a weapon thanks to these kills. Maryville, 4 on 3. Everyone back towards Malbar, Rins, and you even have your win condition here of Chloric even further back away from Mound. Wildfire, heavy swing and gets away with one, even staying alive in the process, waiting to bait out these players at elbow, and it's just paying dividends. Rins with one more. KHS, a swing, and it's straight to the afterlife with you. A frag against KHS, and it's Maryville saying, we're done holding back. We want this round win.
Yeah, not giving up on 4th in a row there. Maryville stopping the bleeding, opting to utilize that Rolling Thunder at the very end, playing it soft, slow and silent, and making Texas A&M kind of peek back out for bodies, for information. That is what allowed them to ultimately execute onto the site despite not having all the rifles that they needed. But that one Rolling Thunder, as well as the timing of execution, is what eventually won them that round.
Utility dump early to try to gauge and hold back some distance. They want to get players for Texas A&M into space, and Noble is trying to make sure that the Yoru can't TP. It's a bait for the gate crash. While they decoy out and are more so concerned about the chances that can be created from Rins. Past that, everything is an unknown. Dark cover layered by being here once again. The last one they'll have to recharge them throughout.
Drone is down.
That's always the value here off towards C and why so many teams are forced to hesitate. But now when you know they're not actually in the archway, you don't know that they're not in the archway. You take the swing. If you're Maryville, Jackson, you have to get the intel first that there's a player around the corner. And you saw nothing thanks to the dark cover. They don't know Bing is here. And even if they did, Jova's close by with a covering fire. That's 2 to their name. Yes, Wildfire has to get these kills. And look at that. They needed. And it's 3 on 3 up until Losty. Frosty catches Giza unaware. That was your kind of flanking player, your lone rib, floating for space. They pay the price.
30 seconds left.
Well done coming out from Texas A&M to maintain that aggression, and that allowed the rotation to come out from Aussie Frosty. Now they're stuck. The attack has been split. Chloric forced to play back here, and
Spike plant.
Wildfire just left on site by themselves. We do get to see Texas A&M have a chance to try and collapse together, but they're right on top of each other. Wildfire decides to look up at the most opportune moment. They'll find the pick, but it's not enough. Noble there to clear out. Austin Frosty takes the pick onto Chloric as well, so that's going to be 6 on the board for Texas A&M.
Hey guys, I'm stuck on rope. What's happening? I'm stuck on rope. Can't move. Door stuck. Door stuck. Door won't open. My goodness. One of those moments where it's just this little thing that happens in a round and it could have changed everything. But this is now the second time we've seen it be an A hit. And Maryville can't survive the post plant. Even when they should have had the advantage, getting rid of Austin Frosty there was a simple ask. They were 11 HP, 9 HP, very low. But they failed to do so. They let players move in. Noble to try to reassist. Hey, just not far away from that. You have to shut down these players to even that player count as fast as possible. Seeing a lot of missed opportunities from Maryville, and their post plants leave a lot to be given on A site. They want to try to get Chloric as far back as possible, but you can't use the utility that far back, which means you do still have to close that gap. And the team didn't make the perfect decision at the right time. Ange, though, gets showstoppered. Thankfully, survives it and uses their Shrouded Step to actually get past it, not taking any damage from that. Still, the gunshots before dropped them to about 80 HP. The Maryville will still have all 5 players as they start to move in pretty heavily here towards the A set, and they'll have to deal with the Vice utility that's stacked on site.
And I love that Joba opting to play further back, allow for this isolation. KHS going to let one pass slide through, but it was just the Euro fake that triggered it. Armageddon here over onto that B site. KHS finds the lurk pick, but Wildfire lurking there as well to trade out. Now, so execution is going to come. The fake plan is going to come down. Bing's going to swing out. And the trades are just going in favor of Texas A&M.
Ooh, Bing's been spotted. Could have stayed in that corner and actually taken down Rins, but you know you have Austin Frosty for the crossfire not too far away. Wildfire alone. Possible 7th round on the horizon for Texas A&M. Bar a miracle here from Wildfire. And you have to step out from this dark cover. Time's not on your side. And wow, a swing to Bing, but Austin Frosty is not one to give up their chances thereafter. 7-4, the total score. One more round left in the first half of Lotus. And we very well could see the start of a 3rd map on the docket because Texas A&M are fairly confidently in the lead and could very well make this 8-4 by the time we see round 13 come underway.
Huge round coming out from Texas A&M to try and pad this lead on their defensive side. As we know that Maryville is usually very strong on offense, so this is a good look for Texas A&M to be able to win out the half on defense now. The stack this time is going to be going towards A. It's going to be Joba trying to solo hold, but they will get stunned by the fall line. There's no one to really follow up on that. Rolling Thunder is going to come out as well, but Joba able to dodge it. The Armageddon splitting the execute, protecting Joba from getting flooded.
Can only do so much though, and it's drone for drone, bit of intel for a bit of intel. There'll be all 5 players for Maryville and now effectively on site. Giza could have fought for that ult orb if they wanted it and tried to get this neural theft online, but that won't be the case. Instead, it's a sheriff kill out from their hands. It's an eco round for Maryville for the final. And they're just not finding as many kills as this required. Shorty round the corner, down they go. Chloric way off in the distance, needed to fight, but had only a stinger, had to close the gap. And Texas A&M will in fact go 8-4 at halftime. And we did finally see the Rens get impact here as the Yoru. Last round obviously there, getting a dimensional drift, good vision, using the decoy as a way to bait out the Vice Swat, which I think was kind of the intent and purpose of the Yoru for this map in a lot of ways, besides just the spoken dagger, obfuscating your viewpoint, being tricky, this jester of sorts as a duelist. You're really there to counter that Vice. And I didn't really see the Vice Swat ever get baited in any of those rounds, but I think 2. So again, the Yoru pick very well countered by Texas A&M, despite it being a direct counter to their most popular agent selection that they work with.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that comes to the testament of Texas A&M really taking these fights early before Maryville is able to actually execute or step foot on the site. So much aggression, and they also layer it with times where they play more passive, keeping Maryville guessing about what the defensive plan would be. Now, this half is going to be a lot more difficult for Maryville, especially with that when it comes to having that Yoru pick. Yes, you can trigger the flank, but it's not nearly as impactful as faking it out on an execute.
How much can you get when it comes to C-Site and a pistol round? It's pretty easy to get into there. Most teams will try to use it as a way to pivot, maybe closer towards B. But you had a fight going in Maryville's favor. off towards attacker spawn. Your entire fight and chance out through A lobby into main, into attacker spawn. You lose one, you trade it right back. And Frosty is even able to secure Ainge, who was trying to hold in towards back aside and kind of gets usurped for control by Frosty going through lower just under waterfall. And it'll be Maryville at a disadvantage in this retake. If they have a little bit of utility, Clerk's waiting to find the perfect spot to send this salvo. Rans is flanking in from C Mound. And you have all these attacking players all the way through to defender spawn. If they could have Giza peek at the just right time, waiting and baiting for Cloric and Rins to be there, you could maybe catch away with more. There it is. Giza gets one. They're now trapped towards defender spawn. They know they're there. It's a free two for Giza, but Noble does get their frag, but it doesn't matter. Shut down, eviscerated, however you want to describe it. Maryville will take that pistol, and their timing finally feels consistent, working with players that are in different positions, which was super inconsistent, it felt like, for their attack.
Yeah, they started off strong like that, right? With Giza coming, having some huge picks, as well as carving up the map, but then they slowly started to lose footing on the offensive side this time. On defense, the timing of Giza is incredible. How he's able to swing just the most opportune moment to cause disarray in Texas A&M's pulse plant. We've seen what he's able to do on split, and so far on the second half on defense, it looks like he's looking to repeat that success.
Frosty, first one forward, and judge in hand for Giza. We've seen Giza with a judge many times, and I am not surprised to see it out once again, but knowing that Giza had nowhere to really fall back to, they also send a counter salvo their way. And this will be a fallback for Giza, hoping to get help from Cloric. There it is, lays into more. But Bing and Joba, shockingly enough, do get themselves a kill apiece. And Maryville wants some more intel. Ainge has been so darn clean with it. Out in the cross from Mound, switching that door, keeping it as a Levy 2 front fight. And now Joba alone with only a ghost. Yeah, there's a player close of Cloric who is already low. But this judge could deal with you in a single shot. You shot the shoulder, that hits! Cloric's even lower, 4 HP now, but it didn't kill. You'd be peeved looking back at this one like, what? How did that one not do it? Maryville start with the first two and will narrow the odds ever so slightly. We'll finally see rivals out from Texas A&M.
And sometimes this is what makes the judge so powerful, especially on these anti-eco rounds, because even if you the engagements are so close, right? Even if you drop weapons, your teammates are still there to prevent the enemy team from converting those weapons into their own favor. And that ultimately is what allowed the rest of Maryville to really close the gap on the rest of their sites on those flanks. Now we see that early aggression come out and take control of a Rebel, and this is just going to leave Renz posted up there, but Frosty spots them out and takes them down.
How many players can sit stacked inside one angle? Texas A&M think, well, it's 5. They'll rotate Joba away, as you'd expect. Like I said, you want this Vice to kind of be this lonesome prowler. They treated Giza the same way. It's your Sentinel's role and tacit responsibility. It was a lot harder to do as a Cypher, and it is still difficult to do so as the Vice. But the Vice is so good at self-flashing, it has a little bit of extra help. It's hard to do the same thing with Giza, and maybe that's why we saw Maryville struggling a little more so on their offense. The ninth round is being hunted for now by Texas A&M. Cypher Tripwire will be tripped. Wildfire holding that cross. They're like, okay, well, we've given away that it's a B push. Let's go and just take that door and swing on over towards C, where Giza did not stand a chance here at Jackson as Joba takes their head off their shoulders.
Yeah, and that early pick from Ren now looking very good coming out from the side of Texas A&M. Cloric will get the wall bang onto Noble, but the plant's already been down, and again, they don't have anyone to really close the space here, especially with Ren's going down. No fake outs, no gate crashes to try and stuff this out. And you see these angles being held by Texas A&M. 4-man high-low here. Angel will find a pick onto Bing to trade out. The only consolation here is that this is a bonus round, so you may not have to win this as Maryville, but if you're doing a lot of economic damage, this does work very well in your favor, as 4 weapons have gone down. It's just Angel left. If you can get one more, I'd say this is a pretty good round.
I think it is, no matter the case. Angel traded out for a Vandal, can run away with this one. Shrouded step to even get further away from the blast, and it is a round win, yes, for Texas A&M, but you dropped 4 to the 5 of their rifles. You kept one on top. You stealing it away, didn't have to spend anything to do so, and the team was on the same page for it. I think this is one of those moments where statistically, the scoreboard will show one thing, but you as a team will have the understanding that it was going the other way, and it was, in fact, a moral victory, if anything, for you. And it also is a great way to break down really how Texas A&M are going to start to hold these post plants. You now know that they're going to put a player up on boxes and stack that. You know they're going to leave Joba close up to site unless you clear them first. You know they're going to try to rotate them back through the defender spawn. Every one of these can now be further bred through by Maryville to say, I see you. Do you see me back in return?
Now, heavy fight here on Mound. Angel and Renz taking full control of C-Mound, and they have Spike down as well. One way is going to get posted out, and Ainge already on the move for a potential ace. Joba, the only one left, has a Guardian in hand that Texas A&M forced up, and I don't really like the idea of saving a Guardian, but the economy is just so low for the Aggies.
I'm also so confused why Austin Frosty threw that nade. The team just walked past Cubby anyways. All you did was nade out Noble. The team pays the price, though. Noble's not able to move while taking that damage. Well, you can't rip through Renz. My goodness.
Oh,
it's short-lived past that. And the ace is gone. But Maryville get the round win that they wanted the round prior and can do so without really losing too much in the back pocket. They'll have to buy a weapon for Renz. And it'll be brought from Wildfire's back pocket instead. And they have ultimates. 3, actually, to their name, of all things. Armageddon in hand for Chloric. From the shadows here for Ange. And then Giza has that Neural Theft. And while it is hard to find value for the Neural Theft and find the right spot to use it, I do think as they're here on defense, it will be very valuable if they can get that poking player. If they can get Joba off the board first, then use that Neural Theft to kind of key into where the other 4 are kind of lagging behind to wait to an approach in sight.
Yeah, 5-man push coming out. Down B. The Armageddon is going to be invested here as they really want to close this round out. Chloric finds the 3 picks that they need. It's just going to be Bing left. Chloric with 4 to close the gap on this Texas A&M lead.
It's free as can be there. Armageddon is as clean of a swing there. Into B main, there's actually nowhere to run to. It is a truly completed funnel. There is no door switch you can pull to quickly duck off towards B like on Mound. There is no wide alley like it is on A, so you can just walk either forward or backwards if it's laid laterally, or if it's laid vertically, just walk side to side, right? It's not like that. B main is entirely taken up and swarmed by that Armageddon. And Maryville knew that. They take the round win, and they get Chloric even half of the ultimate again. 4 pips already, and they just used it. That is a scary, scary statistic in their back pocket as they're trying to keep Texas A&M away from double digits. And they want to tie them up now with a 9-9 score line, but it's up to the offense to prowl into their saving grace. And they're making a lot of noise when it comes towards mid and towards B, clearing out that drone. But they kind of guess that it will be a rotate off towards A instead. And this is where maybe Chloric could shock by breaking this door, and they have, and get themselves a free frag, even maybe chancing to Aussie Frosty, though they do get the other end. 36 HP is all that remains. And this is a duelist that has to close that gap with nothing really left in the tank, because you even lose KHS thereafter. And the showstopper! No way! Giza couldn't hit that shot either. It's Maryville struggling to shut down Aussie Frosty.
Huge fadeaway shot on the showstopper coming from Austin Frosty. Wildfire, though, will punish an aggressive Austin Frosty, and Ainge with the shorty in hand, anticipating the Rose Garden. Now Joba left in the 1v3. They have to isolate the angles, but they slowly collapse onto them, and Maryville finally ties it up at 9.
I think the craziest part about that is you look at Ainge, if we have the replay for it, they get Rose Gardened and they panic and Shrouded step up away from drop and they go, wait a minute, I have a shorty in my back pocket. And they immediately, I hope it shows it here in a second. It's so good. There's the showstopper running away. Oh, it won't. No. And they just drop immediately back down again. They go, I totally forgot, guys. My bad. Drop back down with a shorty, and then get that frag there, as you saw in that replay, to secure. And it's Maryville now tying this up 9-9. credits easily in their back pocket. And you cannot say the same thing for Texas A&M, but you cannot underestimate this team no matter what they have in their back pockets. And it's a wise thrifty from them. Guardian for KHS, Stinger for both Bing and Austin Frosty, and Noble and Joba just with measly Sheriffs. And they have ultimates if they really wanted to work with something. We saw the ultimate come out for Maryville, the Rolling Thunder more specifically, in a thrifty round. So maybe Texas A&M are looking for kind of the same mindset here. If they can get a little bit of information, force them away, get the ult orb for KHS, try to get a post-plant scenario with that, you know, Teo still alive and well off towards C, then try to take it from there.
And the aggression coming out from the side of C Mountain, Paranoia to force back the offense just a little bit as Angel and Ren's gonna be holding the C site together. It is gonna be a save by coming out from the side of Texas A&M, trying to close the distance with these Stingers. Rolling Thunder is gonna be invested as well, and Bane's gonna get the swing on Age. Austin Frosty finds the pick onto Giza, and this will allow them to get the plan down at least.
Oh no, they're coming back. Salvos buy time for the rest of the team for Maryville to move in. Flash coming out for your Yoru of Rins. That's a horrid flash opportunity. You're still stuck there though because the Vice Vines. The Thorns can only do so much. Crouch, you have to here. Sheriff shots Chloric, very barely dodging these and forced to flush away. It's a spike plant scenario for Texas A&M, and this Thrifty is paying out right now for the Aggies. Wildfire has to take this close. Joba's foot has been spotted. Still peeking at head height. Not sure how to go into this. Goes and gets Austin Frosty, but Joba punishes. It's just Chloric. 1v3. Knows that Joba's around that corner, but the only chance they have to peek this now has to flush Noble away. Has to force them back. Joba also away from the door. This is your time. You have to swing this, but you can't win the fights. Losing out on Ange in that position, gave that gun to Austin Frosty, but then just dropped it for Bing. You can't take that fight down on elbow if you're not going to get at least 2 there. And because Ange didn't, and Shrouded stepped back into it after getting away from the crossfire swing on B door split from Joba, the team pays the price, and it's double digits first for Texas A&M.
Yeah, huge Rolling Thunder coming out from Noble to set the rest of Texas A&M there. The big round, like we're now seeing the importance of the ultimate economy, where that really was won off the back of that Rolling Thunder, allowing the Aggies to flood the site. Now you see all this utility coming out to fight for this rebel control. Giza's gonna find the first pick, but Austin Frosty to trade out from through the smoke to even up the numbers here. Now there's no Sentinel utility here left on the A site. The Aggies may just elect to aggress this after cooling down for a second.
Fallback plan main. Call has been rung. It's come from inside the house. They're going to go ahead and rotate away from that A main and leave a player here. We see this a lot on Haven. Get a team, the whole team down through A long. Leave them off in Cubby. While this is not Haven, it's not a safe Haven either, right? You're so visible from that position if door is pressed. If Maryville decide to go for a little bit of information, and if the team does start to move in here towards C, and you're baiting out with all this utility, dark covers, Teo salvos, countering with a D-stave, right? Like all of these now make so much noise off towards C that they'll start to unanticipate that it'll be a playoff towards A as the From the Shadows does come out to get your Bing Shaling Omen a lot closer towards sight. And Wildfire's alone, down with Austin Frosty, eventually refragged, but Maryville have made headway with this, and with 20 seconds left, there's not too much remaining, and they're just biding their time as it's 2 players. 1 player starting through drop. Do they know they're there? They don't. Chloric off with Joba. Armageddon to try to clear out the upper side. Bing does take damage here. Needs to get spotted. It's a trade. Just short from Rins to try to save Chloric's life. But it's a 2 versus 1. Can't isolate this fight. You now know where KHS is. And the team has to make the call. Down through Garden. Paranoia to send. Flash around the corner. KHS to swing. You're too early, Rins. Now Age is alone. Salvoed off away from Spike. Nothing they can do. Send out the destabilize as well. Does it hit? It doesn't. Well, Angel will get the kill. It was just too testy. So much discoordination, Jackson.
Yeah, as well as discipline coming out from the side of Ainge, smoking off the Spike there and not pushing into tree, because they know that that's exactly what KHS is baiting for. We saw the concuss come out and the rockets to prevent any push, so Ainge just waits it out, understands that eventually KHS is going to have to reswing to try and see if the Spike has ever been halved, and already Ainge holding that angle Beautiful 1v1 play coming out from the side of Ainge there to tie it up once again for Maryville.
Oh my goodness. Double digits for both teams. Checkpoint or chokehold. Will it even matter? Rins with the operator. The boomstick comes out and rips through KHS's torso. And Maryville have gotten their first blood and now can just start to spread their wings on defense. Look at how quickly Rins escaped away from C. Yes, they'll set it up so they can gate crash back over. That's to be expected towards defender spawn. Up on top of ramp, more likely than not, as it eventually will rotate around that corner as it's attempting to move. But you now can have this at top of stairs and wait for the call to be made. Joba will die to Wildfire's util, and Rins even does get one more as Wildfire swings. Batter, it's a home run. It's a completely flawless round for Maryville as they'll get 11.
And all of that was to just funnel a trap into a rubble. Make Texas A&M run into Giza and Wildfire off the back of Renz's operator pick. I don't think Texas A&M was prepared for that. Oh, sorry, not the operator. It was the outlaw. And going into this round, it looks like Texas A&M is going to have to do another save by making that outlaw pretty much an operator once again. The hit's going to come out onto that A bubble side as Wildfire and Chloric are going to try to maintain control here, and Giza gets a pick with the judge onto Joba, and that's just making matters worse at this point for Texas A&M.
No damage back either, right? I mean, this is a completely unreturned kill. And you don't even hit this right. Giza's going to get 2.
Where is everyone?
Oh my goodness. And there was a Rolling Thunder that came out from Wildfire to protect the rest of Texas A&M from flooding into that broken door area. And the utility usage coming out from Maryville right now is just absolutely stunning.
Rins up close, baiting, gate crash, flash again, knows there's one close, has to swing the shorty, doesn't get the kill, gate crashes out! No way! Eventually, it's just KHS who's just tagged by that shorty, even more damage going the other way, and it's match and series point on the docket for Maryville. Bar KHS pulling off the most ridiculous play in the history of VALORANT. It'd have to start with all 5 of these next shots hitting, and that's just not going to happen, and they know it. Maryville chewing on their prey, teasing their food. It's match and series point 12-10. Checkpoint or chokehold. It's chokehold in Texas A&M, and they are asphyxiating for air right now. It's a suffocating presence coming out from the defense of Maryville.
We saw Noble there, or KHS, literally 1 HP in a dream. Sheriff in hand, up against 5. Match point per Maryville. Texas A&M really have to try and pull one out here. Otherwise, they're going to get sent down to losers to face off against Winthrop, which is another extremely strong team, despite the year that Texas A&M have been having. Locking in, Ren's already pushing up front here in Rubble, getting that first pick onto Austin Frosty.
KHS finally swung by Wildfire. 2 and 2 for the trade. Oh, you gotta hit this shot. Thank you, Wildfire. Chance up close. No way! Wildfire off with Bing's head, and it's just Joba, the guillotine right now. That is this A main push through Rubble. And Joba has to carry the team on their shoulders, and it's Wildfire up close, but Giza from down under on stairs. At the distance, it's Maryville taking it 2-0, guaranteeing Jackson their return now in their send through to Raleigh for the championships, and on top, a minimum of $8,000 for scholarships. Huge victory for Maryville.
Yeah, Maryville University sitting pretty uncomfortable tomorrow for Mother's Day. They get to relax and hang out with their moms as they await their opponents to meet them in Raleigh. And on that last round, it was just so unfortunate. I saw a team flash come out on the side of Texas A&M that really allowed Wildfire to get a fairly lucky spray kill, I would say, onto Noble, and then immediately follows that with a nasty flick onto Bing. So well done coming out from every single one of those players on Maryville University. It just didn't feel like Texas A&M had really any answers for the aggression. Maybe at some point I think they needed to play a little bit more defaults and fall back a little bit, let Maryville get their aggression out, utilize all of their utility, kind of like flip-flop their defensive rounds, where they eventually just started to fall back and not meet that aggression. That's what allowed them to take that 8-4 round lead in the first half. But now on their attacking half, they just let Maryville kind of run them over each and every single time. They played up close, and anytime they were up close, they just kept getting punished. And there really wasn't like an adjustment out there coming out from Texas A&M.
Let's go ahead and take a look at the replays, kind of break down everything that we saw for that one. These are, of course, the exit lag replays, so make sure to check them out. The entirety of the map was really felt like in control for Texas A&M off the start, and we didn't see a whole lot from Renz in the utility from the Yoru in the first half, and we pointed that out plenty of times, but my goodness, you'll see a couple of the highlight moments in the second half just from the replays. Renz came alive in the second half, for sure, utility-wise, and while it didn't feel like the Yoru was super cohesive against the Vices, it felt like that was a direct counter. Defensively, the Yoru was amazing. Renz being able to play in nearly any site, gate crash over towards C, forcing the play on towards A, even when it's a B fight, the team's got that lockdown with Giza, working in tandem alongside Kobe. You got just everything, right? Like, Maryville had that defense in the bag, and they just needed to survive the first half, which isn't what a lot of teams will think about, but maybe was in the back of their mind here, and Texas A&M didn't get the same didn't get the same amount of respect they would have wanted through to it, but it doesn't matter. Maryville get that victory, and so much of that is reliant on the way that Renz just shut down Texas A&M's offense, and even Angel. I just think Angel was so clean and pivotal in these big rounds, like that one there off towards Mountain, the 3K. The shrouded step back above, then the shorty frag after they used the Rose Garden, dropping back away. So clutch as an individual right here. So clutch as an individual to give just enough of these couple rounds. And then the 1v1 and the post plant that comes in. Oh, we just had skipped that round. They didn't have the replay for it. That came in the round prior to this one, right? Where they clutch up. And I talked a lot about how Wildfire was so good. And yes, this round a little bit, and maybe not, don't look at those first few missed shots there for Wildfire. I'm sure they're not happy with that either. But everything prior to that, Wildfire was always this consistent player for the team, and it never felt like somebody was missing, I think, for Maryville. While they weren't always cohesive, it didn't mesh like perfectly. It was good enough where you got half of the links working together. Sometimes something goes wrong, but at the end of the day, it connects just right, and it's a victory.
And I think that's a testament to how well Maryville actually plays together, that even sometimes when their utility is not working together, it doesn't really matter as much because they're always playing together, right? They may flash each other, but they're always there to trade each other out. It was never a 1v5 aggression. It was always a 2 or 3 player coming out from the side of Maryville to take on that 5-man flood. And oftentimes, if not winning out the engagement, at least trading out evenly, making it much harder for Texas A&M to get any momentum off of those rounds.
We'll pull up stats for you here soon, I assume, but it is a lot of similar story to Split, right, for the overall side of Maryville. But I think the big difference, and you're going to see it, is who was bottoming the leaderboard at the end of map 1 and who was topping the leaderboard at the end of map 2. And it's a pretty big difference. And I like to say a team that frags together tends to win together, right? That's kind of my general motto. If the team can stay consistent as an overall, and that's not like consistently bad, right? But like consistent as a team working together, you're going to see them kind of splurge in their round wins and get ahead of the competition. That wasn't really the case here for Texas A&M once again. 10 kills, 18 deaths, 8 assists from Noble. That's your Breach. But then you look over to the other side and compare Breaches for Wildfire, who was much better on kills, so solid on assists, 15 assists, topping the department overall with assists. Jeez. The next highest is 8. That was tied by Noble and Bing from Texas A&M. And then also Chloric Renz and Ainge on the side of Maryville. This player has a 273 ACS with 22 kills and only 13 deaths, and the stats don't lie. They're crazy. And the first kill department was not lacking either for the rest of the squad. 4 out of Renz, 4 out of Giza, 3 from Ainge. Yes, 2 and 1 from Chloric and Wildfire respectively, but it's just such a big difference. You had to rely on Joba way too much, once again, like map 1 out of Texas A&M, where they got 5 first bloods, and that was easily the highest by more than double in comparison to the rest of Texas A&M. you just can't rely on this one player this hard. Joba is one of the best players you can ask for in this role, but it's too much weight on one player's shoulders. Anyone would crumble under that pressure.
Yeah, and this is a triple double coming out from Wildfire. And if those first blood numbers don't show you how well Maryville plays together, I don't know what really does. Because when have you ever seen a team where all members of the team get at least 2 first bloods coming into these games? Like, this is a team, again, every time they decided to aggress, there was utility. Did it always glue together? Not really, but they swing together, they trade together, they frag together, they win together. Everything that they do is a buddy system. I never saw anybody by themselves. And yes, even though it was usually against a 5-man flood coming out from the side of Texas A&M, the way that they positioned themselves in triangles, in crossfires, there was just nothing that Texas A&M could do to try and break that defense.
Let's go ahead and throw it over to our upper bracket and lower bracket here once again. I just want to kind of rewind everything for how this entire event has gone so far. Let's look at Texas A&M's history to this. Takes down Northwood. Unreal difficult team to go into first. They get the job done. West Virginia University, that ended up being a crazy force to be reckoned with, taking down Cumberland in that grand finals for the CVAL South side. Takes them down. Turn it over to Harrisburg Storm. They were good. They kind of shocked everybody. Yeah. They took down Winthrop, for goodness sake. And look where Winthrop is now. Supposed to lower it over to the lower bracket. They got through everybody, but couldn't get through Maryville. And Maryville had a fairly easy time. SJSU, eventually Fisher. Yeah, that's tough, but it didn't feel like they had the craziest of battles. But when the going got tough, look who got tougher to close out that semi and then finally that upper bracket final. And they've confirmed their way through. Then compare the drop down for Texas A&M. They get through right at lower finals. They now have to deal with Winthrop, who got dropped early by Harrisburg, who you then had to worry about having to face them for a rematch in the lower round 7. But Cumberland kind of saved you a little bit in a full best of 3, an unbelievably close best of 3 last weekend, Jackson. But Cumberland could not survive Winthrop, not by any stretch of the imagination. Map 2 was very lopsided, and map 1, while a little bit closer, wasn't what Cumberland were really looking for. And while they can be happy that they've confirmed, hey, we're a top 4 team, we're getting a prize pool, next year's going to be even better, and that is what Cumberland has been saying even before that loss, Winthrop dominated and now has the chance to be a Winthrop versus Maryville grand final in Raleigh and a rematch against these teams that they would love to see again.
Yeah, rematch of CECC where Maryville was able to get up on top, but we can't really get too ahead of ourselves because Winthrop still have one more challenge in between them and the game to grand finals. They have to get through Texas A&M. Not a very strong showing today from the Aggies, but based on the rest of the tournament, they have been rolling through teams. Hopefully they're able to lock in tomorrow with the pressure of elimination behind them and really try to squeeze one out. But right now, from what we have seen, even from today, Winthrop is looking very scary.
Yeah, and I believe we're actually starting tomorrow's broadcast an hour earlier than expected. So I think show live is 2 p.m. EST. I think that was just confirmed for us. So stay tuned for that one. We're back live here again. It is a best of 5 in the lower finals. So at minimum, we'll see 3 maps. And the question will be, if it is just 3, who on earth could it possibly be taking it in a 3-0 fashion? Will it be Texas A&M? Or will Winthrop do what is necessary to rematch against Winthrop? Time will tell. But we'll see you there tomorrow. Stay tuned for it. It's been a pleasure being here once again. We'll see you guys next time.